What's going on, guys? Here with the RAS Group, back in another video today. Let's talk about Glock upgrades. I kind of have some opinions on some stuff that's worth it, some stuff that isn't, stuff that you actually see a benefit from, and some stuff that surely aesthetic looks cool. And I get a lot of questions about this. I've done quite a few Glock builds in my time. I run a Glock for work. I run a Glock for, my personal endeavors. So a lot of people think that I have some ground to speak on this, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Either way, we're going to dive into it. So the best way that I can think to address this is by going through the fundamentals and looking at what things could help improve said fundamentals. First thing we're going to look at is grip, right? So for comparison purposes here, I have a Gen 3 Glock 17. Okay, safe. I have my custom Glock 45 MOS. Safe. And these are kind of, absolutely stock, highly customized, kind of where we're at and what we're going to be looking at here. So let's talk about grip first. So Glocks notoriously have this kind of a steep grip angle, right? Where you have to really lock your wrist forward to obtain a parallel slide to the ground. That's just kind of indicative of the nature of the firearm. You're not really going to ever be able to change that with grip enhancements or modifications. But what I do see with grip enhancement modifications is if you watch closely, we teach to apply tension with your dominant hand. And if I apply enough tension, or if I'm tensioning rather hard, my fingers can start to slip from lockup with underneath my trigger guard. Stippling is a great way to do that, preferably rough stippling. So this catches my fingers. It doesn't allow them to slip down the grip at all, right? Now, if you have stippling that's kind of, well, we'll say not as rough, such as on this beauty here, you'll see that this is stippled, but it's really smooth, right? And as my hands get sweaty, as they get wet, whatever, maybe we're out in the snow, we're out in the rain, my fingers will start to slip down this front bat strap just over the course of the day. The best things I found to counteract that are rough stippling, specifically rough stippling, and the Talon Grips Pro texture. Their sandpaper texture is pretty good too. I like the Pro. It's kind of a mix of both. The strictly rubberized texture I find to get pretty slippery, especially as I'm using a firearm for extended amounts of time, say maybe 3-4 hours and on up from there. So that is something I've seen that can definitely assist with just maintaining a consistent grip. Getting your gun stippled or adding Talon grips is not going to give you a master grip just out of the gate with no technique. You have to have some sort of established technique in order to find the benefits of these things. And that's going to be a common trend as we discuss this, right? The other thing I have found is with a Magwell. Now, as you can see here, when I'm gripping nice high into my beaver tail, I don't really have any interface with this Magwell, right? For me, this is mostly half aesthetic. I think it looks cool, and it also fills this little plug right back here, which we'll talk about some more here in a few minutes. But for something like say a Glock 19 that I don't have up here right now, I do have, yes, I do. I have one Glock 19. Let's see. Right here. So we'll use this Escarpment Arms Glock 19 as an example. Glock 19 grip. Now, as you can see on this, having a slightly shorter grip, my pinky does interface with this Magwell. Now, what I found on these shorter grips is a Magwell will reinforce a proper tight grip, and it helps keep your fingers from slipping down, much like we find with a rougher texture for stippling or the Talon Pro grips. So those are two things I've found that can really assist with the grip. Now, another thing to talk about with these Magwells is, sorry guys, I'm looking at my notes as I'm doing this because I don't want to miss anything. Like I already touched on, it fills this gap right here. Now, you can do this with grip plug inserts, different things like that. But what I found is, especially on your reload and maintaining your grip under a reload and not fighting with the magazine, if I come in here and I miss that reload, that will get it right back in there. So if I don't do it perfectly every single time and I have one of these, that's okay. The Magwell will do what it should do, funnel the magazine into the magazine well, and what could have been a rather large hang up turns into a minuscule hang up, keeps you in the fight, right? Now let's talk about the what I'm going to say is the second of the two biggest fundamentals, which comes down to grip and vision, right? Now we're going to talk about vision. Now, I've talked about red dot sights versus iron sights. We're not going to do that again. I think the benefits are pretty evident and obvious when we talk about RDSs, but I still maintain and believe it's paramount that you understand how iron sights work. Just understand it. I'm not saying run it all the time. I think dots are the way to go, but something to, a little bit extra knowledge never hurt anybody. So now we're going to talk about how to return to how to maintain that focus, maintain that vision, and have our sighting system return to our original point of aim, right? And a lot of that comes from, proper grip, proper technique, but it also is enhanced with ports and compensators. I don't really have any ported guns. I have one from Safari Precision, but it's not like a modern day Monsoon tactical style porting or Vulcan Machine Works or anything like that. It's some simple porting that lines up with the slide. What I will say is having something to redirect gas and help just keep your muzzle that much flatter. It's not so much recoil control that I'm getting, but what I am getting is a faster realignment of my sights to my original point of aim. And that, if we can maintain that original point of aim, it's our original point of focus, it keeps our vision consistent, we can usually expect better shot placement. So that being said, I will say there are some considerations to ports and comps and stuff like that. And keep in mind, 9mm, which is what all these guns are chambered in, has no drastic recoil control impulse. We can all agree on that, right? It's sheerly about the ability to return sighting systems to that original point of aim. And that's where I see the benefit of putting comps on 9mm handguns, or really any handgun. I definitely think that there is some considerations to take into place, especially with ports, having a completely open system that can allow debris, can allow different things to get in there. I understand that if you carry concealed, not really a big problem. You have clothing and a holster protecting it. If you carry overtly, though, and your job is carrying outside the waistband, and that's what it entails, I'm not saying that you are guaranteed to have an issue if you have ports in your gun, but just know that the capability is there, right? Snow, water, mud, dirt, dust, whatever. Could it be a game ending kind of obstruction that gets in those ports? Probably not, but it's possible. The same thing could be said with comps that have some sort of relatively open design, like this Radian Ramjet Afterburner, or even this Agency Arms Barrel and Compensator combo right here, right? You have some opening that has the possibility of something to get in front of your muzzle. I think comps are a little bit safer than ports for the sheer fact that it's usually less openings into your system. I still don't run a ported or comped gun for duty carry. It's just what I'm doing, and I'm not allowed. But if I were, I would probably choose comps over ports. That's a whole other discussion entirely. But bottom line is you do get some benefit to your vision focus game running ports or compensator. There's also a discussion to be had about using comp to ported guns under night vision. There's guys smarter than that to talk to about that. I'm not a very avid night vision user. Now let's talk about trigger manipulation. So obviously people either love or hate a stock Glock trigger. We usually have some slack to a wall, a little bit of creep, and a break. Now, I don't think that's horrible. I've come to just accept it and run it. But with an aftermarket trigger like this Overwatch Precision tack trigger, we have a very short take up to the wall, a little bit of creep, just ever minuscule, and a very crisp tactile break. Now, and then our reset, or our travel back to our reset, is pretty audible, pretty tactile, and I can feel that no problem whatsoever. So, and the same thing with this. This is also an Overwatch tack trigger on this gun. Very consistent. Right to the wall, break, short reset, crisp break. I think that there's definitely a benefit to be had there. Now, what you won't see is a benefit as far as your draw to first shot, right? Because usually what we're doing is we're coming out and we're drawing, we're prepping our trigger on the draw, get our sights relatively aligned to, you know, a realm of acceptable accuracy, and we're kind of pulling straight through, right? If you're not used to trigger prep on the draw, you're coming from here and going straight through. And that's something that your aftermarket trigger isn't going to show you a lot of benefits of. Now, what an aftermarket trigger will show you benefits of is in your split times, right? Because you're eliminating the over travel, you're eliminating the pre-travel to a certain extent. It's not completely eliminated in a striker-fired platform, but you're enhancing that a little bit, which therefore you don't need to reset as far, you don't need to pull as far. You are going to be able to manipulate that trigger faster and have result in faster split times. Now, what I will say is an aftermarket trigger isn't going to fix deficiencies in the ability to in-flight reset or run a trigger. But once you have those baseline capabilities established, you are going to see a benefit, right? It might only be by a couple hundredths of a second. You might go from 2 O's to 1/8s or 1/7s. But if competition is your game, or just chasing never-ending progression is your game, then I think it's a worthwhile venture. But again, you're introducing something into the ecosystem of the firearm that wasn't in the manufacturer's original vision, so we have to take that into account, right? There's a potential downside to that, along with everything that you add into a firearm, but that's for you to make that decision on, right? The last topic I'm going to talk about is extended controls. Now, I am a huge fan of the CAGWorks raised slide release. I use it on this gun, and I use it on this Gen 317. As you can see, this is relatively flat on the stock Glock 17. It's very possible to hit and utilize. You don't have to spend the money if you don't need to. It's very easy to go and drop your slide on a reload. This just makes it that much better. I think that just, especially if you have larger or smaller hands, this raises it up if you have larger hands. It extends it back if you have smaller hands like I do. So then when I come in for the reload, very, very, very tactile. I can feel it. It's not a guessing game. I know I'm going to drop that slide. The other thing to be said is about extended magazine releases. I have one here in the 17. If you have small hands, that's definitely something to look into. Just be careful with that, guys. If you start going crazy and doing like the competition style mag releases that are super extended, as soon as you do go from here to here, just to try it, just to run that and see how it feels, you have a high probability of dropping your magazine from your Magwell just by applying pressure, proper grip pressures. So that's my not so short spiel. This is going to be like a 15-minute video. I apologize, guys. But that is our discussion today. That's what we're talking about. I hope I gave a little bit of insight into this. If you guys want me to cover any of this in a more specific topic, like just comps, just ports, just triggers and different stuff like that, throw it down in the comments. Let me know. As always, I appreciate you guys stopping by. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch my subpar YouTube videos. So until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay trained, stay rad, and I will be back with the next one.